Hello, and welcome to this week's In Conversation. My name is Phil Jackman, and I lead on CyberNorth, Dynamo Northeast cybersecurity cluster, supported by Accenture and the Innovation Super Network. Each week, I'm talking to people in the Northeast cybersecurity industry. Today, I'm joined by Noel Miland, Country Manager, UK and Ireland for Communicloud. Hi, Noel, how are you?
I'm good, Phil. How are you?
Yeah, very good, very good. Sun shining outside?
It's a glorious day in the Northeast.
Good, good. Excellent. Well, can we start first with telling us a bit about yourself and your role within Communicloud?
Right. So I've spent 22 years from when I had hair in the telecoms industry and the IT industry in the region. So I spent that 22 years working in the corporate space with BT. So I left BT in the end of March of this year, and we established Communicloud. So we're an offshoot of an existing business, but very much a new entity in the UK.
Okay, but I gather Communicloud is an Australian company. Is that so? And if so, what's some of the new company doing working for them?
So the parent company is Australian, yeah. So there was a good friend of mine, former colleague of mine, and myself set this business up, which is an offshoot of his business in Australia. The Northeast has always been home to me for the last 22 years. It was home to him for the best part of 10. Our CTO is from South Shields, so we've certainly got a strong link with the Northeast. So when we were talking about opening this business, there was only one place it was ever going to happen.
Quite rightly so. And what exactly do you do? What does the business do?
So we have three main strands to our offering. So it's cybersecurity, connectivity, and collaboration. So cybersecurity speaks for itself, although our focus in cyber is more around the individual rather than the usual firewalls and perimeter protection. Connectivity is a piece, a work in progress at the moment, where we're looking at building some some relationships with suppliers to deliver secure connectivity throughout more regional areas, which don't normally get the same focus as perhaps the larger cities. And finally, collaboration. So anything that you would put under the heading of a meeting, whether that be an audio conference, a video conference, Teams environment, a web conference, anything that comes under the heading of collaboration. So that's the three strands to our portfolio.
So I'm thinking here you must have been pretty busy during the pandemic then.
Very much so. It's been a very, very interesting few months. Combination, and it continues to be so. So what we saw initially was the initial wave of adoption, without a great deal of consideration in a lot of cases given to what the adoption was. It was just a case we need something and we need something now. We're now moving into a more mature phase of that. So customers are now having more mature conversations with us around, right, what's the long-term strategy with this and where do we need to go with it? But yeah, it's certainly been a hectic few months, both from a UK perspective as a startup, but also globally as a business. The demand has been unprecedented.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. And so you described one of the three strands of cybersecurity. So is this a standalone offering that you use, or is it part of your communication?
So the business initially was a collaboration business, and then over time it branched out more into connectivity, and then we took a step back at one stage and decided that actually the real conversation here is cyber. So everything we've delivered and every product that we've ever shipped out has always been with cybersecurity at the core. So it made perfect sense to make the main emphasis of the business security. So security for us is the first and second consideration, not somewhere down the line. It's not an afterthought. It's what we do. So by default, all of our services adhere to strict security parameters. We've got our security accreditation, so we're very heavily audited on the fact that what we say we do, we deliver, and we deliver everything in a secure fashion. And what we're finding that organizations are adopting cloud and hybrid cloud and multi-cloud applications. And historically, the emphasis has always been on the network and the hardware that sits in the network. And we traditionally view security services concentrated on the perimeter. So if you take the analogy, it's like focusing on, I don't know, the battlements on Hadrian's Wall. So, as long as you can keep the bad guys out by focusing on these battlements, then you should be okay. What's evolved over the last couple of years and where we've put our emphasis in our product development is the scenario where data just doesn't sit inside or sit behind the wall anymore or sit inside the organization anymore. Data and people, by definition, are mobile and agile. So we operate what we consider a zero trust model. So everything starts from a position where it's untrusted. We then ensure that the cloud services are secure by default. We ensure and we layer security to ensure that we trust every user, we trust the device, trust the connectivity, and make sure that the network that you're accessing from shouldn't really be that relevant. It's about the people, it's about the devices, and looking at it as a holistic approach rather than just putting out fires here, there, and everywhere as they arise.
So building castles now is not a suitable way of securing your
Not so
environment
much.
anymore.
Castles tend to get breached, don't they?
Indeed. So I had you down as a sort of multinational corporation. I'm not quite sure that is true, but presumably you still have contacts with Australia. And does that bring its own issues in terms of cybersecurity?
Yeah, it does and it doesn't, Phil. From a compliance and regulatory perspective, it does. But those same anomalies that are driven by compliance and regulation are also driven by customers' own industries. Every industry has its own unique challenges and its own unique requirements. So manufacturing industry is very different from the financial industry, is very different from the public sector. So no, we're well used to be having that agility and understanding the unique challenges of each environment. How we try and overcome this is sitting down with the customers, having a conversation about internal requirements, regulatory requirements, geographic requirements. We don't like to think that we sell security products. We sell outcomes, we sell results for customers, we sell peace of mind and assuredness that they can continue the focus on running their business, on being successful, on looking after their people. The security products, the suite of security products that we deliver, and very often it is a suite. So by definition, it becomes more difficult for a business user to manage those. We look at those products then as a commodity that enables the business outcomes that we want to drive, and we offer our service wrap to sit around that. Again, taking that pain away from the customer, taking that requirement on the customer to understand all these, to understand the changes as they pop up, and let them focus on running their business while we deliver the full wrap and ultimately deliver the outcomes that we agreed with the customer at the outset.
So differences are more industry-based rather than geographically based?
It's a bit of both. You can probably categorize as similar, but as each organization has unique requirements, each geography has its unique requirements. So for example, we're all familiar with GDPR, but if you go to the other side of the planet, they're not beholden to GDPR, but they have their own data requirement, data protection requirements. That's not to say that 99.9% of those will probably overlap. The same challenges exist the world over. It's just how they're defined within each organization. I think there's more individual requirements that are unique to each customer because it's how a customer themselves define risk. You can't remove risk entirely from a business other than shutting up shop. But it's about what's an acceptable level of risk. So what's acceptable to one business is an absolute non-starter for another. Similarly, it's a risk versus cost conversation. So data, by definition, has a value. Customer records have a value. We know that because people sell them. But it's not necessarily about the value of that piece of data. It's about the value of that piece of data falling into the wrong hands and the cost of that to the business through reputational damage, through lost business, through fines and penalties. So whilst putting a value of X versus a piece of data that's worth £10 might seem high, when you then extrapolate that out to actually it's how much business losing that piece of data would cost us, how much brand damage will that cost us, how much in potential fines will that cost us, that's where it comes down to the individual customer to define and to work with us to define what is their risk, what is their acceptable level of risk, and what's the potential consequence of failing to act on that risk. What we do see as a key advantage of a global approach is seeing trends coming over the hill. So attacks come in waves, and breaches come in waves. suppose you could draw parallels between what's going on at the moment. That if something happens in one part of the world, we're a global family now, and what affects one affects all usually. The fact that we have a global presence and we have a very diverse workforce from all corners of the planet, and we've made a conscious effort in recruitment to find people from all parts of the planet that have that local interest in what's going on in their country of origin, if you like. It allows us to spot the trends coming. It allows us to see what's happening in Western Europe today that might affect the US tomorrow, and so on. There's definitely a down effect in there. I suppose the other point in terms of how we work with customers globally to identify these problems, because we as a global business, we experience very different challenges in the UK as we do to Australia, but it's about defining what's normal. Once you've defined what's normal or usual, you'll be able to recognize the unusual. So a lot of our conversation is around that piece of understanding human behaviors, using artificial intelligence to identify what an employee's normal is, and then by definition throwing up red flags when something out of the ordinary arises. And that's the greater the size of your sample and the greater the global reach of your capability is, the better you are the better that artificial intelligence becomes, that allows you to spot those anomalies.
Of course, everybody's normal is not normal anymore. But so, what's your own personal focus right now?
Apart from house training a dog, which is coming, so we're as a business, apart from house training a dog, as an organization, I suppose we're very much in startup mode in the UK. So the focus for me for this business in the UK is raising brand awareness, but more importantly, it's understanding the landscape, building the networks, getting the word out there. Something I've learned very quickly in the shift from the big corporate space to the SME space is it's not enough to have a very good product. It's not enough to have a very good story if you can't get that story out. So it's my absolute focus at the moment is building networks. It's getting the word out there, getting myself out there, and getting our brand out there.
So these next few months are going to be interesting, to say the least. Not like the last few months have been interesting. What are your hopes in terms of your work?
We've got a fairly ambitious growth strategy. So we like everybody else have been just keeping our head above water for the last few months. I think just keeping the doors open, keeping the product going. We've sat down over the last couple of weeks and started to look at, right, this is what the foreseeable future looks like in terms of the landscape. We're not going to see a mass exodus back into the workplace. We're going to see a softly approach to that. Our focus is first and foremost getting our security message out. So it's speaking to those businesses that have fundamentally changed how they operate, but did so in such a quick fashion that they didn't have the time to sit down and evaluate what they were implementing. It was a patch solution, a temporary solution put in place just to send people home rapidly, and at scale. So it's speaking with those customers to understand and design what their future looks like. For businesses starting to move back to the office, we need to help them redefine what the office looks like. So the last 5 or 10 years, there's been a huge push on shared workspaces, on flexi desks. It was seen as groundbreaking 10 or 15 years ago that you could rock up to an IP phone, put in your PIN number, and it pulled you down as a user to that handset. Of course, the difficulty there is the handset, which is a source of potential spread of infection. So that, we think, will accelerate the move to soft phones. Looking at our video conference units, again, a touchscreen device was groundbreaking 10 years ago. That conversation now shifts to mobile app-based interfaces that allow a touch-free environment in that space. So it's working with our customers to understand what their ambitions are for the future, what their new version of normal is, and continuing to develop our partnerships. We're relatively new in the region. We're building some strong relationships to deliver the connectivity piece, which is what's missing from our portfolio at the moment. So very soon we hope to bring to market our secure connectivity and internet package. So that then will give us the full rounded set of products to give the end-to-end solution to our customers.
Excellent. So planning to keep you busy. Well, thank you very much for that, Noel. That was great.
Thank you, Phil.
I'd also like to Rick Campbell, who's helped me to set up these in conversations. Look out for the next one in our series, and if you're interested in taking part, please get in touch. Thanks, Noel.
Thank you, gentlemen.